Good morning, this is TVP World. You're watching World News. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. Following overnight Russian airstrikes, 2 people were killed in southern region of Odesa, while around 60,000 people in Ukraine's frontline region of Zaporizhzhia suffer power outages. The country's state emergency service posted video footage of their early Sunday strike in Odesa. They said on Telegram that a truck stop was attacked, killing at least 2 people. The attack on Zaporizhzhia left 2 people wounded, reducing buildings to rubble, and took out local power supplies, according to the regional governor. State officials state that power will be restored as soon as security situation allows. Created in 2022, the Russian Volunteer Corps first drew international attention during the raid in Russia's Belgorod region more than a year ago. Now, this report looks at the Russians fighting on Ukraine's side, their motivations, and the group's strategic goals. We visited the unit in Ukraine to tell their story.
The Russian Volunteer Corps is a military political organization of Russian volunteers, mainly citizens of the Russian Federation, who have come to Ukraine's defense. In addition to restoring the territorial integrity of the invaded state within its 1991 borders, the main goal of the Corps is to overthrow the current dictatorship in the Kremlin. Let's get to know them better.
The Russian Volunteer Corps is a special unit subordinate to the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, and we are assigned a wide variety of tasks. These are often missions typical of special forces. We use a wide range of military equipment at our disposal, including armoured vehicles, tanks, boats and aircraft. The spectrum of our activities is very broad.
The combat trail covers operations in the Chernihiv, Kiev, Kherson, Zaporizhzhia and Donetsk regions, as well as in the Bryansk and Belgorod regions outside Ukraine. The Corps won one of the most important battles of this war, the Battle of the Volchansk aggregate plant, a victory paid for with the lives of brothers. However, armed combat is not the only form of resistance chosen by the Corps.
One of the main strategic tasks of the Russian Volunteer Corps is not only to fight against Putin's regime, but also to create and build a new community, a new Russian society and a new civil, political, military and cultural life. Our task is to awaken contemporary society, unite, reconcile and build a politically civilized community of Russians.
During my time in the Corps, I met many young soldiers, all of whom had a visible brotherly bond and a high level of motivation.
The greatest glory for us is to unite our brothers into one collective with one common goal, brotherhood. You know, I always say that the word unity does not include the concept of me. Those who understand this know what brotherhood means in the Russian Volunteer Corps. We have countless examples of people risking their lives for one another, of brothers giving their lives for their brothers. These examples prove that for us, the concept of brotherhood is not just a word.
The Russian Volunteer Corps is a clear thorn in the side of Kremlin propaganda.
We only tell the truth. To combat Russian propaganda, all you need to do is tell the truth. We always talk about both successes on the front line and problems, as well as political and social activities. We always keep our word. We fulfill our promises. We do not embellish reality. And this greatly irritates the propagandists of the Russian Federation.
The Russian Volunteer Corps has grown from a small group of volunteers into one of the largest formations fighting on the Ukrainian side, coordinating combat missions that will be remembered as some of the most important chapters in the history of this war. The group is constantly growing and raising awareness about the Kremlin regime, which its members have decided to devote their lives to fighting.
Hungary will not be exempt from sanctions against Russia's two biggest oil companies, according to an announcement from US President Donald Trump. Despite the American leader's statement, the Hungarian prime minister believes that he can still change Trump's mind during his trip to Washington next week.
They're massive sanctions, and sanctions on oil. The two biggest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, but they're Russian. They do a lot of oil.
That's U.S. President Donald Trump imposing his first Ukraine-related sanctions since returning to the Oval Office, hitting Russian oil giants Lukoil and Rosneft. But one of his closest allies in Europe isn't happy.
If we have to pay more, even double, for oil and gas, then we cannot pass that burden on to people at the current reduced utility prices. So, those who want a reduction in utility costs, we must protect Hungary's right to buy oil and gas from the Russians, or at the same price as the Russian price, or cheaper.
Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban says his country can't survive without Russian energy. Blaming geographical factors, Orban warns U.S. sanctions could crash his country's economy. Hungary imports more than 4/5 of its crude from Russia, and Orban's betting on Trump granting him a waiver when they meet at the White House on November 7, even though Trump already said no.
I have to explain to the Americans that they can't imagine what it's like if a country is landlocked. When the American president looks at the map of his country, he sees that waters wash its shores from the left to the right. On the other hand, Hungary is a landlocked country. We have no sea access. Direct sea transport is not possible.
But former Hungarian Foreign Minister Péter Balázs tells TVP World that Orban's no alternatives story doesn't add up.
Orban has tried several times to ask a waiver from the United States. A few weeks ago, he tried to explain to President Trump that Hungary was a landlocked country and we have no other possibility than to rely on the old Druzhba pipeline from Russia, which is not true. Donald Trump believed that argument. However, experts pointed to the fact that Hungary action to the Adriatic Sea across Croatia, which could replace without any problem the Russian sources.
While most EU member states reduced imports of Russian fossil fuels following Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Hungary kept the oil flowing, standing out as Putin's best friend in the EU. Meanwhile, Trump already scrapped his planned meeting with Putin in Budapest after Moscow opposed an immediate ceasefire.
I'm going to have to know that we're going to make a deal. I'm not going to be wasting my time. I've always had a great relationship with Vladimir Putin, but this has been very disappointing.
And now, Orban heads to Washington with a full entourage, hoping to charm his way out of Trump's sanctions. And only one question remains. Can Hungary's defiance on Russian oil survive U.S. pressure? For TVP World, I'm Diana Skaya.
10 people are in hospital with life-threatening injuries after a stabbing attack on a train in eastern England on Saturday evening. Police say counter-terrorism officers are assisting as they work to determine a motive. Officers were called around 7:30 p.m. after reports of multiple stabbings on a London-bound train. The train stopped at Huntingdon, where armed police boarded the carriages, as seen in videos posted online. As eyewitnesses told Sky News that one suspect armed with large knife was tasered by police. 2 people were arrested. Prime Minister Keir Starmer wrote on X that the incident was, quote, deeply concerning. An additional person is being treated for less serious injuries. Germany's defense minister, Boris Pistorius, says he is confident that the ruling coalition can agree on a new model of military service in time for it to come into effect next year. Pistorius wants to increase the number of active soldiers from the current 180,000 to 260,000 by the early 2030s to meet new NATO force targets and strengthen Germany's defenses. The cabinet has already agreed to proposals for a new voluntary military service to help boost the number of recruits and reservists. But the plan still requires approval from the German parliament. It has already met with resistance from lawmakers within Pistorius' own party, the Social Democrats, as well as some of Chancellor Friedrich Merz's conservatives. Poland has come under cyber attack again, this time targeting the BLIK contactless payment system and the Itaka travel agency. Digital Affairs Minister Krzysztof Gawkowski said on Saturday that payment disruptions have begun early in the morning following a distributed denial of service attack on Poland's clearing infrastructure. Last year, BLIK processed 2.4 billion transactions worth more than 81 billion euro. Another attack led to a leak of login data from Itaka, a major travel agency serving clients across East Central Europe. Cybersecurity firm Checkpoint Software Technologies says Poland now faces 23% rise in cyber incidents and average 1,800 attacks per week, among the highest rate in Europe. Reports suggest the United States may be preparing military strikes in Venezuela. Sources say the Trump administration is considering attacks on President Nicolas Maduro's regime over alleged drug trafficking ties. Maduro has asked Russian President Vladimir Putin for military support amid a U.S. buildup in the Caribbean.
According to the Miami Herald, U.S. forces are poised to strike military installations in Venezuela in what could mark a major escalation against President Nicolas Maduro's government. The USS Gravely, a missile-guided destroyer, has already departed from Trinidad. Sources familiar with the operations say potential targets include sites tied to the so-called Soles cartel, a network allegedly run by top Venezuelan military officials, accused of smuggling hundreds of tons of cocaine into the United States each year. While it remains unclear whether Maduro himself is a target, Washington has doubled its reward for information leading to his arrest to $50 million, the largest such bounty ever offered. The White House, however, is downplaying the reports, insisting no final decision has been made. Asked about the plans on the sidelines of the ASEAN Defense Summit, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said he would, quote, not share any amount of operational details of what may or may not happen. President Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One that any official announcement would come directly from him. U.S. strikes on alleged drug trafficking boats in the Caribbean and Pacific have killed dozens of people since early September.
U.S. President Donald Trump says the United States may intervene militarily in Nigeria if the government fails to stop the killing of Christians. He added that all U.S. aid and assistance to Nigeria would be halted immediately. Posting on Truth Social, Trump said the goal of such action would be to eliminate the Islamic terrorists responsible for the violence. His statement came after Nigeria's president rejected Trump's earlier claim that Christianity faces an existential threat in the country. On Friday, Trump placed Nigeria on the U.S. list of countries of, quote, particular concern alongside North Korea, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and China. Rights groups say more than 37,000 people have been killed by Islamist groups in Nigeria since 2011, and over 52,000 Christians have died in attacks since 2009, according to the International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law. And with that, we conclude this edition of World News. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.